For us, we found out that over time, a lot of hitting, parents, they're looking to instill confidence in the mental game and not just hitting drills. So for us, the evolution was more, finding ways to speak to parents and trying to get them, their hitters, to have more confidence, and more joy playing the game. I think the biggest thing is giving kids permission to swing and miss. Like I basically tell my 7-year-old, like, swing as hard as you can. I want the kids to understand, like, have some freedom to take your hacks. And I think for me, when I watch my 7-year-old teams play against other kids, it's like, you can tell the kids who are going to do some damage because they take their hacks. And other kids are, they're afraid to fail. So they're trying to make contact and swing half speed or whatever it is. And so I think for young kids, especially, I just want to let them, like, let it fly, like, see what you're capable of doing. And then we can always calm it down. Like, okay.
And welcome to the Batter Up Podcast, where we swing for the fences. In every episode today, we are joined by Matt Lisle of the Hitting Vault. If you're not familiar with the Hitting Vault, it's an online program designed to improve players of all skills. Matt has worked with hitters from Little League to the major leagues and everything in between. Matt, thanks for joining the show today.
I appreciate it, Tyler. Thank you. I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah, so give us a quick introduction to what the Hitting Vault is and what people can expect from it.
Yeah, the Hitting Vault, the best way to describe it, I think, is it's the master class of hitting for baseball and softball. And I always try to say that we were there before master class, and but to me, I think the best way to describe it is it's an online library of drills, kind of like Netflix in the sense of choose your own adventure, but it also is a program that holds your hand if you want to and builds your swing, and you can tell it, what problems you're having, and it'll build a program for you. And it's kind of an online hitting coach for you. So that's what it is.
That sounds awesome. I mean, you say it was around before Masterclass. When did it start?
I launched it in December of 2014. So we're coming on 10 years now. That I launched it, and it came from an idea I had. I had seen other people doing, like, courses were starting, but there was, and what's funny about 2014, and a lot of people don't know, is like, I was me and a guy named maybe Bobby Tewksbury and a couple others. There were no online hitting gurus. It didn't exist. And like, if you wanted to buy hitting instruction, it was like a DVD of like Mike Epstein. And then another guy had a DVD, but like an online library of videos for like hitting, it didn't exist. And I just got really lucky. I'm like, hey, I should try to do like an online course. And that was kind of the beginning of it. And it turned into it. And again, back in the old days of social media, there really wasn't any other hitting gurus out there, or whatever you want to call them. There's like 5 of us. And now there's probably 5,000 or maybe more. So it's just a different time then. And it was fun.
Yeah. And I'd say if you're not familiar with the Hitting Vault, check out their website, because what you guys have is so much more than just a 4-pack of DVDs. I saw that there are multiple packages available. It looks like you can, like you said, build out exactly what you're looking for as a hitter, what you're needing to improve, what you're wanting to gain. You guys have built out a tremendous thing over there. How has that evolved over the years to become more of a catalog and a resource rather than just, direct, here's tips and here's drills?
Yeah. So, I'm a parent. I've got 5 kids. And so we built it with parents in mind. So it's like, hey, I'm a parent, and some parents go to hitting lessons, and they go once a week, and their kid doesn't do the work and the homework on their own. And there's all these different things. So when we first started building it, I was like, okay, for parents, how do we build this out so that if they don't know anything about baseball or softball, they can still buy it and use it and understand it, and it can teach them in a very simple way. And then throughout time, we try to evolve it more and more of like, hey, what are the pain points people are having? And like, and for us, we found out that over time, a lot of hitting, parents, they're looking to instill confidence in the mental game and not just hitting drills. So for us, the evolution was more, finding ways to speak to parents and trying to get them, their hitters, to have more confidence, and more joy playing the game, and not just, your elbow up, your elbow down, and, very technical things. And so it's evolved more into a process of trying to help them all around as a hitter to just enjoy the game of baseball and softball as long as they possibly can.
That's such a fun response, and it's so important to remember that hitting is so mental. It's so confidence based. If you walk into the box during a slump, it's like there's no way I could hit that marble. And then you walk into the box during like a hot streak, and you're like, that volleyball's, I've got it.
Yep.
So I love that idea. I love that you guys are working on the mental side of things because I think a lot of times we do get bogged down with, you need to work your T work, here, here, and here, and soft toss here, and then you want to take this and that, and those things are important, and you do want to refine those skills. But man, getting the confidence right, getting the
Yep.
parents involved is important because those, especially in an online hitting, setup like you guys have, the parents become this voice in their ears. They become the coach. They learn it from this program. So that's so cool. I love to hear that.
Yeah, it's been a fun ride. It's been awesome, and we're proud of what we built. And one of the things we first set out to do was we filmed it all on movie cameras. So we had like the camera crew from Twilight, the movies, to film it all. And we were like, okay, like how could we make this like so above and beyond what anybody else is doing that we decided to film on true movie cameras with like the whole setup, like movie cameras and all of this stuff. So for us, it was kind of like, how could you make it as as great as you can? So that was one of the ways we wanted to do it, was just build like a really professional looking thing versus like and there's nothing against anybody else, but like you see a lot of guys and it's got bad lighting, they're in the cages, there's no microphone, and it's like it's kind of a different setup. And so we're like, for us, it was like, okay, how can we set ourselves apart? Just not just the content and like be the best that area, but like what's an area that we could really push into. And so we decided to like really go all in on like movie style setup. So that was kind of a fun thing that we did, and I'm glad we did that versus my idea would have been to just do it in the cages and turn the camera on with an iPhone and do it, but I thought we did it the right way.
Now, do you have a connection to that film crew, or how did you
Yeah, so
get hooked up with them?
I had a partner in the hitting vault for several years. My a good friend of mine, Aaron, who I grew up with, and his background was in making commercials for Nike and Adidas and all of these things. So he had some great connections, and he was able to get us all of that at a very reasonable cost because there's no way we could have ever done it without that. And so I think that one of the things I think that has benefited us in this run is that like for other people to do it at that level and even me by myself, it would have been so cost prohibitive, could never have done that. But I said my partner Aaron at the time, he had the kind of a connection there and had worked in that industry and kind of pulled some favors, and so that was really huge for us. And if he hadn't done that, we wouldn't have been able to done that.
Thinking about that versus like the old Tom Amansky films or
Yeah.
the videos, like yeah, that's truly a separator. I think that's really cool that you poured into that element because I think it's so easy to look at it and just go, a video is a video. What we're selling here is our
Yeah.
tips and our
Yeah.
drills. But that's a separator. I love that.
Yeah,
Um,
and not to plug any type of bat brand, but I think when I think of all the different bat companies out there, to me, one of the things that sticks out, I always think of like Warstick. I think Warstick, like whether their bats are good or not, but I really think that like they're a brand that does a really good job of making it look good, making it look cool. And I think like I know a lot of brands are trying to do similar things, but I think for us and I think other brands out there, they're figuring out that for a lot of these young players that the cool factor and trying to some of the making it look good is really important for a lot of people, and so that's something I always kind of think about whenever we're trying to produce something.
That's a good call out there because I had Ben Jenkins, the CEO of Warstick, on a couple weeks ago, and the way he views the world is just different,
Yes,
and the
Ben's
way
awesome.
that he's so visually, creative in what he does.
Yep.
You're absolutely right. I love the idea of baseball, a sport that is so engrossed in history and
Mm.
150 years of playing it. And, sometimes we get a little bogged down by tradition. Well, you can look at other sports and they're doing all these different like aesthetics and these colors and these designs, and they're trying out this with their fields. And I do love the idea of baseball, coming of age a little bit. And
Yep.
so
Yep.
make it a visual sport. And I love that. I love what you guys are doing. I like what Warstick's doing, obviously. Now Now I do want to touch on this because I was looking at your background and your history, and it looks like you've done everything you could possibly do in the game of baseball and softball. You've coached it. I saw you were a scorekeeper. I saw you were a scout. You've been in the sport for 20 plus years. Tell me tell me a little bit about that journey.
So for me, I played baseball growing up. My dream was to be a major league player like every other kid on the planet, and that wasn't working out. And I was playing baseball at Cal State Hayward, a D2, which now is Cal State East Bay. And my junior year is like, oh, I mean, I might be pitching in the rotation, I might not. And my old high school coach called me and said, "Hey, why don't you come be my assistant this year?" I'm like, okay, that's probably a better idea. Like this dream, I don't know if it's gonna happen. So I go and coach. I'm probably 22, 23 years old, and he'd been the head coach for like 35 years. He had like an altercation with the player, which that's anyways. And I end up becoming the head coach. So I am the head varsity baseball coach. I end up like 23 years old,
Wow.
and it was so fun. I had no idea what I was doing. Like high school kids ate me alive. It was all bad, but I was like, this was something. So I started thinking like, okay, maybe my life could be a high school coach and teach high school PE. Like maybe that could be a goal of mine. And I kind of started thinking of that as a goal. And so I did that for 4 or 5 years. I went to college. I became a PE teacher for a few years. And then we ended up having a lot of success. And so I'm like, hey, I wonder if I could move to the next level. And I knew nobody, I had no connection. So most of my journey in coaching is like starting from scratch. And I think for some people, they play at their college Division I level or any level, they graduate and their coach hires them and they have connections, and like it's an easier, smoother path. And I knew nobody. And so I kind of, worked my way up and anytime there was an opportunity for a job, I decided, hey, I'm just going to try to keep going as far as I can go. And so throughout my career, NAI job was my first job. And then I got a D3 head coaching job. And I just continued to try to move up the ladder the best that I could, having kids. And I was a single income dad. So I'm, trying to figure out how to make it work. And if anybody's in the coaching industry, like, I'm 25 years into that. And I can still barely pay the bills. So like, it's not a glamorous job to try to pay the bills with. And so, most of my career has been like part-time jobs. I've been a head coach at a college that paid $8,000. I've been a full-time D1 coach that paid $13,000. It's like, that's 2 months of rent in the Bay Area of California. So, for me, the journey was just kind of continually trying to find my way up. And then I kind of had a huge breakthrough in 2012, coaching high school. I'm like, I can't coach high school anymore. I just can't do it. And I sent my resume out to every D1 baseball and softball coaching job. And I was watching softball and I was like, this is really fun. I think this would be fun to coach. And I went to bed that night after emailing every single D1 coach in the country on both sports. And I got a couple emails from D1 coaches who were like, hey, I got a volunteer job open or a GA job. And I'm like, oh man, I got three kids at the time. I can't do that. And I had 130 or so emails from D1 softball coaches saying like, hey, we might be looking for someone like you. And long story short, I ended up being the volunteer assistant and the hitting coach at University of Oregon. And, at that time, 2012, 13, they weren't very good. We were predicted to finish last in the Pac-12. We ended up winning the Pac-12, going to the College World Series. And it's just like kind of launched me into the next thing. And at the same time, I went all in on social media and just started building this. I built a following really fast during that time. And so it kind of all just synced up to 2014 when I launched the Vault. I had a couple 100,000 followers. I'm coaching D1 softball. And I launched the hitting vault, and again, I kind of just took off. And so for me, kind of just kept leveraging that into working with pro hitters. And next thing coaching at the pro level and on and on. So for me, I've bounced around a lot. I think there's a knock on me about how many times I've bounced around. And, until you've had, a 5 kids, a stay-at-home mom as a wife, and try to pay the bills in California, it's every year it's like it's a tough decision on like, how do we make this work? And so for me, it's always been the decision of like, hey, can we do this? And, other coaches can relate. Like I've had bosses of mine get fired mid-season, and, there's all kinds of just twists and turns that happen in coaching. And I've been very grateful for what's happened and where I'm at, but it's been a wild journey to say the least.
Yeah, that I have 2 kids, so 5, I couldn't imagine. Um, let alone jumping around and trying to find the next source of income and, life fulfillment and all that goes into our careers. So, well, I guess one of the things that stuck out to me there was your switch from baseball to softball. What's one of the things that stands out in your mind when it comes to hitting that changes from baseball to softball?
Yeah, there's really nothing in the swing that's different. I had learned really quickly that in softball, the instruction across the country and parents and dads was not very good. So softball was kind of low hanging fruit from a hitting standpoint. Like you could make huge changes. So in one of my first, like I said, that year at Oregon, made incredible jumps, and then I ended up coaching at a D2, my first like paid coaching job, and I coached at a D2, and we broke like every record. And it was just such low hanging fruit because a lot of hitters have been taught weird things, or all the different stuff the softball players have been taught at the time. And then I learned really quickly that because of 200-foot fences and because of the technology of these bats, if we can, the only difference I do in baseball and softball is kind of quiet down the movement. So like in softball, to hit a ball out of the ballpark, you need to hit a ball at, whatever launch angle, 26, 28 degrees, 24 degrees, but it only has to be hit at like 68 miles an hour. And I'll tell you right now, every college softball player can hit a ball at 68 miles an hour. And so I learned really quickly, like, how do we create that level of power and swing stuff? And the biggest thing is that if you take away a lot of, so in baseball, you think about Javier Baez and Jose Bautista and Josh Stalin, some of these huge leg kicks, and trying to generate some force with these leg kicks. Well, in softball, a great example, 2018, I coaching at the University of South Carolina. I had this freshman, and she was okay. She was big and strong, and I took away her load, her stride, everything, and she could hit the ball 75 miles an hour over the fence. And she ends up hitting 13 home runs that year and had a great college career. And she really struggled until we took that away. So for me, the biggest difference is figuring out like, hey, can your athletes, do damage? We want to do damage in the most simplest form possible. Take away a leg kick, take away, a large movement, that anything that would mess with timing. That has been the biggest thing I think I've had success with, is like, and I still want people to be the way they are, but if for some reason they're having issues with timing and all these type of things, and we just quiet them down a little bit, that usually is a big factor. Where in baseball, you got a college second baseman who's 5'8", 170, quieting down his movements. He's not hitting balls out of the ballpark, very often. So that would be the biggest thing. If softball ever moves the fences back to like 250, 300 feet, then we're going to have to make some changes. But for now, with the technology the way it is, putting on a good swing is the most important thing. Where I think it's really the only or biggest difference we see in baseball versus softball.
That's great insight. I think that's tremendous right there, because you'll see fast pitch softball where it'll be like almost like not even a full follow through, and it goes out of the park because all it was solid contact, you know, struck correctly with some force. Whereas baseball, a check swing, it's really hard to get a ball to jump 350, 400 without, exerting everything. So that's a good tip for fast pitch players.
And I'll tell you a quick funny story that I coached baseball at University of Missouri in 2019. But right before I went to the White Sox, I coached with Steve Beezer at University of Missouri. And in the fall, they told us like, hey, we do an annual game, baseball versus softball, University of Missouri. And I'm like, oh, this is cool. I'm like, my first thought is like, someone's going to get hurt. But they said, for the last 5 years, softball has dominated baseball in this game, and there's a big crowd. And I'm like, really? So we go to play the game, and I tell the players, hey, here's the deal. If you guys want to beat the girls, here's what you have to do. And they're like, okay. And I basically made every player on our baseball team go no stride. Just literally just try to make contact, basically play pepper. And baseball wins like 15-0. We killed them. And I felt bad about it, but the players were like in shock. And I said that, it's such a funny story because it was exactly kind of proved my point of like, if our baseball players had done their normal swing, which they had done their last 5 years, the speed and the spin of softball pitching, yeah, they would have gotten dominated. But just by playing Pepper, I knew those baseball guys could hit a fungo or, hit a ball 200 feet with no stride. We ended up destroying the softball team. I said, and I felt bad a little bit, but at the same time, it was like a great way to kind of prove my point of like, okay, here's the deal. And so our baseball team was just shocked that, they beat the softball team for the first time ever. And that was the only adjustment we made.
That is that's so cool. I mean, I'm sure the softball team was ready to hire you back up in 2020 to come get him again. But what's something that you would just give us a tip for, let's say young baseball players looking to improve their power?
Yeah, I think the biggest thing is just trying to understand like how our bodies work, and like there's a rope in our body that kind of goes from our lower half to our back shoulder, and like trying to get that rope tight as I'm going forward and getting ready to hit. Like, and I think some people, you kind of use the old rubber band technology, terminology. It's not as simple as that, but I think for a lot of hitters, just understand that like some hitters get so tied up. And I see a lot of young players, they do all kinds of weird stuff, but like trying to get that rope tight when they go to swing. And so we do some drills, just understand with kids, like starting them really tight and then making them stride in so they can feel their bodies kind of build this rubber band. For me, that would be one thing, but I think the biggest thing is giving kids permission to swing and miss. Like I basically tell my 7-year-old, like, swing as hard as you can. And obviously that's not the best advice, and it won't always, evolve into the best advice, but like, I want him to understand how his body works and like what he's capable of doing. And if we're just trying to make contact, especially at the younger levels, like it doesn't translate for them. Like I don't want the goal to make contact. We want the goal to do damage and have fun, right? And so, there's always this balance between those two things. Like, got to make contact, and we gotta have power. Like, we can't swing and miss all the time. Like, Major League Baseball has some issues with that now, but I want the kids to understand, like, have some freedom to take your hacks. And I think for me, when I watch my 7-year-old teams play against other kids, it's like, you can tell the kids who are going to do some damage because they take their hacks. And other kids are, they're afraid to fail. So they're trying to make contact and swing half speed or whatever it is. And so I think for young kids, especially, I just want to let them like, let it fly, like see what you're capable of doing. And then we can always calm it down. Like, okay, all right.
Yeah.
But like, that's usually never the problem. We never come across 7-year-olds like, okay, you're swinging way too hard, buddy. Like, calm down. It's always like, okay, swing a little harder. All right, try. It's just like, so try to get them just to, I'll say like grit your teeth and grunt or be angry, like whatever you can get out of them to swing out of their shoes. That to me, that's kind of the goal of the young age, is try to get them to learn how to use their bodies.
I wish I would have been told that as a young kid, because it felt a whole lot like I would go into the box and it's like, man, all right, I just want to, I'll try and hit it on the barrel, but I just want to hit it. I just want to hit it. I just want to hit it. And I don't feel like I ever fully developed like to be a power hitter, to swing and miss, and that's okay. So I love that idea. I love getting that into a young kid's mind, because that's an attack approach. That's, war stick, referencing it again, that's a warrior mentality.
Yep.
Step in, do damage, have fun. Love it. Last question before we get to our game here. What gets you most excited as a coach?
I'll tell you what, it's funny that you asked this, and this is a true story, but I got a text message from a former player today, baseball player. And I was a head junior college coach 2 years ago at a school, and it was a great job. And I had a pitcher who really, he wasn't super talented. He didn't get very many innings. He was late to practice all the time. He missed practice or had terrible excuses. And my coaching staff and myself told myself, let's just cut this kid. Like, let's just cut him. Like, any other program in the country cuts this kid. There's no way he sticks. Like, but he had a tough home situation. He got bad grades. Like, I really had a lot of sympathy, a little bit in empathy for him, and just like, if I cut him and this is probably the thing he has most in his life. And so I left last year, coached at Oregon State this year, and I got a call from the coaches that he had quit in the fall, the new coach, and he had quit. And I'm like, so I reached out to him. I had a long talk. I said, hey, buddy, like, this is your one shot to get out of this family situation, to get out of where you're, your situation. Like, don't quit. Whatever you do, go back, say you're sorry. You don't want to quit. You'll do whatever it takes. I promise you that it'll work out. And that was probably, that was almost a year ago. Then that's in the last fall and the spring. I heard he stuck it out and all this stuff was great. So this morning I got a text message from him, and hopefully he'll never hear this, but I'm going to read it to you anyway. He said, hey, Coach, I just wanted to reach out and let you know that I committed to Central Christian College in Kansas this morning. I wanted to let you know because you were the one who set me back on track, and I'm forever grateful to you for that. That's the text message I got at 10 a.m. this morning. So that's what gets me excited. Like, to me, I love hitting, I love coaching, all the X's and O's, but like the relationship stuff and having players that, like, the impact that you are able to have as a coach fires me up. And just like, he was a pitcher. I never worked with him as a hitter, like this kid. And just like, by investing in him and loving on him, he's going to go on, play at the college level past JUCO. And if he sticks with it and gets his degree, like, it changed his life that he stuck with it. And so for me, that's what it is. That's why we coach. That's why everything that, that we do as coaches, hopefully is framed around that idea of like impact. And I know other coaches have similar stories, but for me, that stuck out because it was this morning. But like, having an impact and changing people's lives, there's not many professions in the world that you have the ability to do that. And coaching is one of them. And for me, that's what gets me excited. And that's what I love about doing it.
Thank you for sharing that today, Matt. That's that gave me goosebumps while you told me that.
Yeah, me too. When I read it, I was like, I'm going to get kind of teary eyed right here.
Yeah. Yeah. Baseball and softball, sports in general, they can have such a profound impact in the trajectory of our lives. And obviously they've had a huge impact on your life and mine as well. I love that story, and I hope and wish him nothing but the best of luck as he goes forward, and hopefully he sees it through and can break the cycle there of whatever he's got going on with his family. So, to wrap things up here today, I have a quick game called Turn 2 that I do with every guest that comes on the show. All it is I give you 2 items or players or things, and you pick one of them. The only way you can fail this game is if you don't pick one of them. Pretty simple, but I've had guests that have failed the game. So, to start off, it's the question I ask everyone to start off. It's Fenway or Wrigley?
Oh, man. I've been to both. I'm going to choose Wrigley.
Okay. Why?
I would just say like the history of, like I said, I've been to both of them. The history and the feel of it, it gives me just a slight edge in Wrigley in the sense of like the Field of Dreams baseball nostalgia feel. I just get a little bit more of that magic at Wrigley than I do at Fenway, but both of them are like totally magical. If I have to choose, Wrigley just slightly more magical.
Love it. Love it. Okay. Ken Griffey Jr. or Tony Gwynn?
Ken Griffey Jr. for sure. There's a joke in my circle of friends that I think that Tony Gwynn is one of the most overrated hitters of all time, and they give me a hard time. I don't really truly believe that, but I have some arguments on the side of, as a data analytics guy, and everyone will hate me for this, is like Tony Gwynn, and he is one of the best hitters of all time. So let me be very clear. One of the best hitters of all time, Tony Gwynn. Having said that, from like a run production standpoint, and like, OPS and some of the things, like, there are some things there that if we're talking about scoring runs and things like that, and for me, Ken Griffey Jr. gets swag points. I wearing his shoes growing up and all the things. So a slight edge with Ken Griffey Jr. Both incredible, 2 of the greatest of all time. But if I have to choose one in my lineup or someone to hang out with or to, it's Ken Griffey Jr. would be my vote.
This just in, the hitting vault thinks Tony Gwynn is a bum.
yeah. Don't spread that rumor.
Okay, nachos or hot dog?
Nachos. I'm a nacho guy. Lots
Jalapenos?
of jalapenos. What's that?
With jalapenos?
Oh yeah, with jalapeno. I gotta feel like I have to have like one jalapeno on every single chip that I have.
Yes. Okay. Would you rather hit for the cycle or hit a grand slam?
Um, I think hit a grand slam. I don't know. I think that if there's like a one moment situation, I was thinking about like a walk off of these things. Like if there was one moment that you could capture, that would be. I think it would be that.
Yeah. Okay. That leads me to my next one. Would you rather hit a walk-off single or rob a home run?
I think walk off single. Like again, like that moment when I think of memories, that's something you would always have is celebrating that win. I mean, the catch would be awesome, but to me, walk off is awesome.
Yeah. Yeah. And then the last one here, Randy Johnson or Pedro Martinez?
Whew, that's a tough one. If I had to choose one on the mound in the World Series Game 7, I'm going with Pedro. I mean, I might change my mind a half hour from now. I think both of them are equally great. I think that Pedro was just a little craftier of a guy, but man, both of them are great. That's a tough one.
Yeah, that one's a hard one. Matt, go ahead and tell everyone how they can follow you and how they can learn more about the hitting vault.
Yeah, so on social media across the board, my handle is at Coach Lisle. Pretty easy to find. You can Google me and find me out. And I think if you're a baseball or softball player, parent, or coach, you can follow at the Hitting Vault on social media or just visit our website, thehittingvault.com. And that's it.
Definitely check it out. They've got some awesome stuff. Matt, thank you so much for coming on the show today. This has been a lot of fun. I hope you enjoyed your time here.
Totally enjoyed it. I appreciate playing the game as well. Great format. Thank you, Tyler.
Yeah, of course. And I hope all of you enjoyed this episode of the Batter Up podcast. If you're watching this on YouTube, please drop a like and subscribe to receive alerts when new episodes go live. If you're listening to this podcast, be sure to drop a 5-star review and subscribe for more upcoming episode releases. Thanks for stopping by, and we'll see you on the next episode.